Well, that was a depressing loss for me, at least as a Knicks fan. Like, I was really looking forward to the Knicks putting out some kind of a statement, whether that meant beating Boston on ring night or just competing with them at a really high level. Like, really looking forward to Jalen Brunson reminding everyone that he's a superstar caliber player, OG and Bridges really just like being a fearsome defensive duo on the wings against Brown and Tatum. Towns asserting himself as like a real cheat code option at center, and just none of that really happened. Obviously, it's only one game, but I think it's very alarming for me at least, that it seems like the Knicks are going to have to work on finding their identity. Like last year's identity was very clear. They were tough. They were a physical team. They were going to pound you inside. They were going to get extra possessions, protect the rim. And this team is not that. And that's something they're definitely going to have to work on moving forward. Thank God they have Eddie one more games to do it because, thankfully also, things probably can't get much worse from there. I'm just kidding. They can always get much worse. But enough about what the Knicks didn't do in this game, because I think talking about what the Knicks didn't do does a disservice to everything the Celtics did do in this game. And I think it's such a, it's so funny that throughout all of last year, we kept trying to look for reasons to pick against the Celtics. Just every single stop, it was like, well, this is probably why they can't do it. And I understood it to an extent because they hadn't done it and they had fallen short a bunch of times. And that's not to say that they didn't have legitimate question marks and concerns, but it's just like everything they were doing was just telling you that this is one of the greatest teams of the modern era in the ways that they just not only won, but just dominated their opponents night in, night out. And this game was an incredible example of that, like reminding us of that, like, hey, they're still that team. 29 of 61 from three. That's 47.5%. And as good as that percentage is, it would have been even better if they weren't chucking in the final few minutes trying to break the single game 3-point record. Just an incredible showing. It's funny, on Twitter, a lot of people were complaining like, oh, this is the NBA now. Like, this is the NBA. It's just teams chucking up a bunch of threes and just like trying to make it a math problem. And like, there are games where you can make that argument. This is not one of them. The Celtics weren't just chucking threes to chuck threes, like just for funsies, right? Like, this was like the ultimate example of what makes this team so good, is that at pretty much every point in the game, they have 5 guys out there who can hit a three. Like, they demand respect from three, but they can also put the ball on the floor if they're driven off the 3-point line. They can make plays. They're unselfish. They have high IQ. And when you get that, and not even to mention, like, all 5 of those guys can then like defend at a high level and defend multiple positions at the other end. Like, when you have that kind of offensive versatility, it leads to nights like this. Obviously, not necessarily saying they're going to shoot 47% from three on over 60 attempts a game, but you see what makes them so unstoppable. The fact that it's not just like, oh, we have 2 superstars and we're super talented. No, it's just every piece fits so well together and they all understand what they have to do. And on this night, it worked out probably better than anyone could have ever expected. Like, the fact that they didn't have any championship hangover, any preseason rust, like nothing like that. Like, they hit the ground sprinting. It kind of makes you think about like, oh, like, again, obviously we do have to disclaimer that like the it's just one game thing works both ways. Like, it's a long season, a lot can happen. Not going to shoot that way, shooting slumps, injuries, all that stuff. But you just look at this roster and you watch that game and you're just like, I don't really know what yes, the Knicks have defensive miscues that they need to clean up. Most of it will be like Cat, like, what do they do at the center position? Do they keep him in drop? Do they bring him to level the screen? Like, they need to figure that stuff out. But also, like, again, that's blaming it on what the Knicks didn't do is just a disservice to everything that makes the Celtics great. And they don't even have Porzingis. They don't even have a 7'3" rim protecting sniper in the lineup. Like to think about, like, when they get him back, like they're just like, it's incredible. Like, so yes, obviously the Knicks have what they need to work on, but focusing only on that is a disservice to everything that this Celtics team is, and proved that they were last year in winning the championship. And I think this game sort of reminds you of just like, oh, like, yes, of course, okay, they got lucky in certain aspects. They didn't have to face Milwaukee. They didn't have to face Philly. They didn't have to face New York en route to the championship. They didn't have to certainly face healthy versions of those teams, but like 64 wins, like incredible stats, incredible point differential, 3-point shooting, all that stuff, like that stuff was still there and it's still real. And they reminded you of that in one of the most dominant opening night performances I've ever seen.